On the sideline at the World Press Freedom Day event here in Abuja, Horizons took up the Minister of State for Environment on the controversy over the environmental impact assessment approval for the Lagos-Calabar Highway project.
Environmental impact and social assessment is mandated by law for some categories of projects, public and private. The Federal Minister of Environment implements that law, and I can tell you that we take it very, very seriously. We don't joke with it. As a matter of fact, I can tell you that in recent months we have observed a few loopholes in the existing law, and we are already approaching the Federal Executive Council to see how to block those loopholes. Now, answering your question specifically, the Federal Ministry of Works applied since December last year for environmental impact and social assessment of that project that you spoke about. And the Minister of Environment has done its preliminary assessment, and I can confirm we have issued a preliminary impact assessment certification for site clearance and scoping of compensation. Scoping for compensation. We have done that, and that is what is going on now. But you know that it is a very big project, a long road. So it's not something we can do in one fell swoop. So we have decided to therefore approach the issuance of the certification in phases like that, so that the project can go on and we can also be doing our own bit of it.
Well, with me live in the studio is the Minister of State for Environment, Isiaq, Salako, and also joining me from our Lagos studio is our environment correspondent, Leila Johnson-Salami, who's been following the story. Good to see you both. Let's start with you, the Minister Salako. Listening to you there, you spoke about scope, which is one of the issues many Nigerians have been asking, which should actually come first. Make clarity for us what exactly you're doing. Did you miss this particular first course, or is it still very much in order, as it were?
Can you take that question again, please?
No, we're asking what should come first, the scope done or the EIA specifically, because you said that the scope is already been done.
Scoping, the environmental and social impact assessment goes through about 8 stages. Scoping is one of the stages of EIA. The way it goes is that the proponent submit an application and a proposal. Then we do an internal screening. On the basis of that screening, we can then categorize the projects. And then our people move to site, does the scoping, and then do some preliminary reconnaissance. And then at the end of that, I think that they can then decide the best method to adopt in the impact assessment. By and large, we go through about 8 steps. The technical people, I'm sure if you have the opportunity to speak with them, they'll be able to tell you, but I know that they go through about 8 steps. And one of those steps is scoping, which we have done.
Well, let me bring in Leila, because Leila has been following this, and there were quite some issues she raised on the day she met with the Minister for Works. And Leila, now you have the man who's in charge of environment. He says scoping perhaps has already started. And your questions on that day, perhaps if we can get the Minister to take some of them now.
Sure. Minister, thank you very much for joining us to discuss this very important topic. I just want to be clear, because my understanding of the EIA Act of 1992 is that a project of this nature cannot start without an approved environmental impact assessment. I'd like you to give us more detail on where this act talks about preliminary approvals, which is what we've been hearing, because to the best of my knowledge, I haven't seen anything in that regard. All I know is that an EIA must be approved before a project of this nature is to start. I also went on the website today, the Federal Ministry of Environment's website for EIAs today, and I didn't come across any preliminary approval there for this project. In fact, the last upload was for a different project where an EIA was approved in December. So if you can just walk us through what the law says, because I'm not aware that a preliminary approval is enough for a project of this nature to start. My understanding is that an EIA must be completely approved before a project like this coastal highway can start.
Well, thank you very much. You know that a lot of time when laws are made, there's also usually a provision for regulations that can help make those laws effective and implementable. So beside the law, the EIA Act itself, there are also regulations that are developed from the EIA Act that, for as an example, I've just spoken about 8 steps. If you go through the EIA Act, you will not find the 8 steps there. But the regulation has developed other enabling provisions to support the implementation of the Act. So if you go through the regulations that support this Act, you will find those provisions there where the stages that we have to go through to ensure that at the end of the day, a final report is given. The fact of the matter is that most of the time, when a project of this magnitude is to take off and proponents apply, often we have to give a preliminary report or a preliminary approval, because sometimes such preliminary approval is needed to assess funding. You understand? So often you find that such preliminary approval is given so that the proponent can assess funding, but there's a limitation to what you can do with the preliminary approval. And that is what I've specified in the course of attending to this question. So the regulations supporting the Act actually allows us to give the preliminary approval.
And Minister, well, I'll take us back a little bit, and it has to do with scoping. There's been this letter that is all over the place, and we were able to get a copy of that letter and open it out on the screen, which specifically spoke about scoping, which you said scoping had started long ago. This letter was dated April 18, and that's the letter. Perhaps if the minister can have a look at that letter. Yes, that's the letter. No, this is not the letter. That's the letter. So we're hoping that, because the letter says invitation letter for scoping workshop for the ESIA and RAP studies of the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway, dated 18th April of this year. And it actually specifically said that the details will hold on Saturday, April 20, 2024, location Eco Hotel Grand Ballroom at 10 a.m. We'd like to find out if this letter is genuine or fake.
I'm afraid I cannot see that letter well. So it's difficult for me to say.
But is there a letter? Is there a letter dated calling for a scoping meeting for 18th of April?
Well, it's very possible. I cannot deny or confirm that letter. You know, as a political head, I do not sign such letters. It is the technical people that are in charge of signing such letters. So I cannot deny, neither can I confirm the authenticity of that letter.
So, Leila, I think you also asked for a copy, is that of the preliminary approval, which perhaps have you received that at the moment?
We'll get to that in a second. But in terms of that letter that went out regarding the ESIA workshop, while you say that you cannot confirm nor deny, after the stakeholders meeting that held at Eco Hotel this week, I was approached by 2 members of the ESIA team who said to me that if they had known I was the environment correspondent with Arise, they would have invited me for these workshops. So I believe that this is something that has happened in recent days or in recent weeks. I know you can't confirm nor deny it, but it does seem to undermine the importance of considering the environment. And that leads me to my question. Are we talking about a preliminary approval or an anticipatory approval? Because surely we have to understand how important it is. Lagos is a coastal city, low-lying. Surely we have to understand the importance of making sure that all approvals are in place before we start building such a monumental highway. And don't forget, sir, we all know how important this highway is. We're a coastal nation. We should have a road like this. But should we undermine the environment and the importance of taking the environment into consideration by starting with just a preliminary or anticipatory approval rather than the full approval that is stated in the EIA Act of 1992?
Well, I must I appreciate you for your very passionate position in support of the welfare of our environment. I'm with you on that. We believe very strongly that we must protect the environment. But I must also let you know that the EIA process is not necessarily designed to reject projects. Oftentimes, the EIA process is to evaluate the impact and also be able to set up mitigating factors, those steps you need to take to ensure that the negative impacts of such a project, you put it into the implementation, also you design other parameters or other methods to ensure that those negative impacts are mitigated. So often we are not necessarily saying that once you do an impact assessment, it is targeted and a negative impact is seen at the end in the course of doing the assessment, that means that the project ends. No. A lot of times you are able to also look at, yes, this is the negative impact that I've observed. What can we do to mitigate it? What can we do to reduce the negative effect, and so on and so forth? So that is what really the EIA, of course, sometimes we do reject when we see that, okay, this project, there's really nothing that can be done to mitigate it. So that is what is it all about.
So I'm actually looking at
Do you have a copy of the preliminary approval with you?
Well, I'm afraid I do not carry this around, but I can assure you that if you really want a copy of it, maybe when work resume during the week, you can come around, go to EIA department. I'm sure they will be obliged to let you have it.
Well, because it's something that we hope that we should get, since it's generating a lot of controversies and interest from around the country, Minister Salako. It's important we do get that. Give us a sense. You said that if we approach because we're here in Abuja, Arise here in Abuja can actually approach that department. Which specifically did you say, where specifically do you want us to approach?
The EIA department, as a department in charge of EIA.
Okay,
so,
good.
So they can avail you of the copy.
All right, okay.
I did send them an email earlier on this morning, but given how big of a topic this is and how controversial this matter has become, isn't this a document that the Federal Ministry of Environment can make publicly available, hand over to different media companies, put out there for public awareness?
Well, honestly, I'm just hearing about your request via an email. Now that the request has been made, I should also let you know that the approval for EIA is actually done by the minister. I am the Minister of State. So this will definitely be tabled in the course of the new week, and then we can then move forward with it.
Okay, let's wrap up on this and just give us a sense of some of the key things Nigeria stands to gain on this fantastic project which you are so passionate about.
Honestly, I think that the Ministry of Works may be in the best position to talk about it because they are the one implementing the project. They put together the proposal. But obviously, Nigeria has about 850 kilometers of coastal coastline. And if you look at the West African sub-region, this is one of the longest coastline in the West African sub-region. A lot of our population, about 12% of the population of Nigeria, lives in this coastline. So when you open up those areas, obviously you are going to impactfully affect the livelihoods of the people residing in those areas.
Well, let me just quickly wrap up with Leila. Leila, I'd like to thank you for your time and thank you for your insights in this conversation. Let's stay with you quickly before we close this. The rains are almost here, and well, some of the sister agencies have warned Nigerians to be wary of what are to come. Now, let us in on some of the key concerns your ministry has found, specifically around the coastal areas and even in northern Nigeria that are bedeviled with erosion and desertification.
Well, there's no doubt about that the environmental challenges have become a very huge issue around the globe generally and also in our country. I'm sure if you, as a journalist, you know what is happening all over the world now with a lot of flooding happening, a lot of storms. So Nigeria, we hope that we can also escape it, but the reality of it is that we must prepare for it. And then we have been issuing warnings. As a matter of fact, in the last 1 week or so, the Minister of Environment wrote to all the state governors of the Federation to pinpoint some of the key areas that they need to be aware of and to take precautions to warn their people. So we have concerns definitely around the challenge of flooding that may be happening. And of course, we are also putting our acts together to be able to work with other sister ministries in terms of emergency response to some of those issues. So these are the kind of things that we're doing. Of course, we are sensitizing the Nigerian people to ensure that they also play their role, do their own part, clean their drains, and take seriously the warnings of government.
I like the part of cleaning drains and taking seriously the warnings of government. It's been a long day for you, and I'd like to thank you for your time, for still finding time to come on Newsline tonight. Many thanks, Minister of State for the Environment, Isiaq Salako.
Thank you very much for having me.